Oh, thank you all. Thank you for tuning in. I say welcome you all to the Giants Markets. This is a financial podcast. We are here to inform you of what is actually happening on the financial markets all over the world. So I thank you for coming in. Please subscribe and follow the Giants Markets and comments and tell us your thoughts of what you are saying about what is actually happening. So I want to kickstart with today. We want to talk about we'll talk more about what is happening in the financial sector in America, with the banks closing down this week, with the recession looming in. It's not very far. We haven't been told more about the recession, but the thing is, the way things are happening, it seems like the recession is not very far from what is actually happening. So I'll talk more about that. I'll talk more about the index, the markets in America. I'll talk more about the markets in America. I'll talk more about the president of Kenya, of what he said, of his plans, of what he's planning in his country. So let's start. So as I always start by talking about, I always start by educating people about the Forex market, because there are so many things that are happening when it comes to the Forex market. There are so many scammers, and so many people are using it to scam because they didn't get the time to educate people of what moves the market, how is the Forex market compromised. Because anyone who understands the foreign markets, it's easy for him to understand the stock markets, even though it's a long way, but you would have done a certain milestone for you to get to a certain point so that you can easily understand the the stock markets and other derivative and so many things. So if you want to do the Forex markets, I will advise anyone to start by doing the Forex markets and to learn to understand how the chart move, the chart patterns. The important things in the Forex markets is to understand the chart patterns. What drives the market when the news come out? What really makes of the Forex market? How to read the candlestick, because those are the chart patterns. So what I always say is that the Forex market, it compromises of two things. There are two things that drive the Forex market. It's the fundamentals and the technical side. So when we're talking about the fundamentals, we're talking about the news. Then when we're talking about the technical side, we're talking of being able to read the chart pattern, because the chart pattern is very important, just to see the pattern, how it looks, whether you are able to interpret this is what is actually going to happen in the next coming 1 minute, or in the next coming 5 minutes, or in the next coming 30 minutes. So today we're going to talk about the one candlestick that is very important in the Forex market, which is called the morning star candlestick. It's one candlestick that is always appear a lot in the chart patterns, in the technical side of the foreign markets. So I'll give you a proper definition. I will try to break it down for you so that you can even go and research about it. Then you can improve more of your knowledge and go and search for it whenever you open maybe the MetaTrader 4 or the MetaTrader 5, or whichever platform you are going to use to trade. So the morning star is considered as one of the complex formation. So why is it considered as one of the complex formation? Because it is recognized after the formation of 3 different candlesticks at the bottom of a downtrend. So where it is a bullish reversal pattern, that's the first thing that you have to know about the morning star candlestick. So as much as there are 3 candlesticks, that makes it to be called a morning star, which means these candlesticks, they appear a lot when the when the trend is going down and is about to reverse and go up in the market. So the first candlestick is bearish, which indicates that the sellers are still in charge of the market. So as you can see, the first candlestick is bearish out of those three, and it's a big candlestick, like you can see it. So it's one of those big candlesticks that shows you that it's the bears are still in the market. So whenever you see such a big candlestick that is full with a very short wicks, it's a sign that the market is going down. So the second candlestick is a small one, which represents the sellers are in control but do not have power to push the market much lower, and that formation of the candlestick can be bullish or bearish or a doji. So this candlestick that is in the middle is one of the small candlesticks that can happen. It's either it can be bullish or it can be bearish, but it's very small, which is actually indicating that the sellers are not in charge of the market at the present moment. There is something that is actually happening. Even the buyers, they've entered. So imagine from that big candlestick moving to the small one, it's a sign that there is a change that is actually happening in the market. So which means the third candlestick should be a strong bullish candle, which confirms the reversal. So when you see those things, when you see the big one and you see the small one that is there, and you see the other green, let's say the green, let's say you're in your chart pattern, in your chart you are using red for bulls and green for bears. So when you see those ones, the first two, then what appears next, it's a bullish candlestick, which is green and it's full. So it's a sign that now the buyers have entered the market, and they are many, and they are taking charge of the market at the present moment. So it is one of the common patterns that appears in the market a lot, because the greatest thing that when you're analyzing the price movement is for you to be able to know what is actually happening when there is a change from a bearish to a bullish. That's the tricky thing that a lot of people who are in trading haven't understood. So that's the one thing that we need to understand to be able to interpret that the market is now changing, it's reversing, it's moving from a downward momentum to an upward momentum. Sometimes it can do this, then it does a correction. So which means there is a change that is actually happening, and there are people who are actually gaining momentum on that time. So it comes in different forms and it comes in different levels, but this one, it gives you a clue of what is actually about to happen in the market. So traders can use this chart pattern in any market, being in equities, forex, or commodities. So on upward climb is based on the following after the formation of this pattern. So whenever you see this pattern, know that there is an upward climbing that is about to happen in the market, and it's one of the most traded patterns, because a lot of people, when they see it, they know that there is a change of formation that is actually happening. So you can even go deeper also and research more about it, because it's common. You can easily see it in any chart, whether in any chart, as long as it has to do with candlestick, it's always there. So that's it for the candlestick for today. So we move on to the next segment, where I'll be talking about the economies of the countries. So on the economy of countries today, I want to talk about the economy of Kenya. The economy of Kenya is a middle income nation and plans to be a newly industrial nation by 2030. So why am I talking about the economies of Africa? So as I'm in Africa, I want us to have an idea of the economies, of the things that are happening in countries on how the president are planning their country, so that we can go and invest. Whenever you find money, it will be easy for you to invest in a country, knowing that in this certain country it's easy to invest in that country based on the policies that are being put by those president and those political parties. So the president of Kenya is William Ruto. He is serving as the 5th and current president of Kenya since 13 September 2022, and will stay as the president for a term which is five years. So Kenya's economy is projected to decline by 5.7% because of the high cost of doing trades with other countries and high interest rates. So as much as the interest rates are going up in every country in the world, so Kenya has been also affected a lot by these interest rates. So because of this, it is projected that the economy of Kenya is not going to go up this year, or even next year. It's also projected to fall down, but it was moving great before COVID. But after the COVID pandemic happened, there was some slowdown that actually happened. So they export a lot, this country of Kenya. They export tea, they export horticultural products, coffee, fish, cement, apparels, etc. So it's one of those countries, even they have a lot of minerals. So it's one of those African countries where they export a lot of things to other countries, because as you know, in Africa, that's what we are heavy on. African countries are heavy on farming and minerals. So Kenya is also exports a lot, and they use the Kenyan shilling as their currency. So Kenya is not one of those countries that is open for business for everyone in the world, but you can go and do business, but it's not as easy as other countries, like when you go to South Africa, when you go to Nigeria to do business in that country. So the president is planning to bring new changes to the economy so that he can grow it. So we'll talk about Kenya, because that's why I chose the economy of Kenya, because the president, he came in 2022 and he came with a new strategy after the president who was in Kenya has stayed for too long. So now he's coming with new concepts, and a lot of people, they are going to welcome them very nice, because of, you know, like, we have to change our thinking sometimes when a president appears in a country. So he's bringing new concepts, and new concepts are always important. Even when you are dealing with the economy, it needs a lot of new concepts to the country. But recently there were even demonstrations because people are not used to those new concepts, but he's going to work it out and it's going to be effective for that country. So as of Friday, $1 was worth 132.50 Kenyan shilling in the exchange rate. So Kenya is one of those developing countries in Africa, and it is a good economy that is growing. So we should watch out for Kenya in the coming years. So right now I want to continue on the news of what is actually happening in the world. On the news today, we're going to start with the indices. A lot of people like to trade the indices, especially the American indices. They like to trade the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones, and gold. So that's what I like talking about. So the S&P 500 on a Friday, it gained 1.44% to 4,109.31, and Nasdaq gained 1.68% to 13,181.35. Dow Jones gained 1.26% to 33,274. So it was a bullish market for these indices on Friday. So whenever you see the indices gaining 1.1 a percentage of it, know that the bulls were present. There were a lot of buyers in the market. So we saw all these indices gaining. But when it came to gold lost minus 0.56% to 1,969.7. So gold was the only one that didn't gain on that day. It was red. So, but we've been seeing a serious bullish market for gold, because it is predicted that whenever the dollar is losing value because of what is currently happening of the interest rates and everything and the inflation, a lot of people, they move their money and take it to gold. So when they take it to gold, which means the gold is going up, and it is projected that the gold will go to about 3,000 by the end of the year, because of the way things are happening in the markets. So I want to talk also about the South African top 40 index, because a lot of people, they like investing in, when you're in America, people like to investing in the S&P 500, in the NASDAQ, and in the Dow Jones. And the thing that has been seen about this market is that when 30% of the time the market can go down in a year, but it can go back up 70%. So it's 30% of the time the market goes down, and 70% of the time the market goes up. So the markets are projected for a bullish more than the bearish side. So that's why a lot of people like to put money and invest in these commodities. Why? In these indexes. Why? Because they bring a lot of return, and they are volatile. They are volatile, and they are bringing a lot of return. So we have to talk about even the South African top 40 indices, as I'm someone who's in South Africa, so I have to speak about the indices of South Africa. So the index of South Africa, it decreased on Friday by 0.85% to 70,498. So what we have to know is that there were companies that lost heavy on that day. So which are the companies that lost heavy on that day? There is Anglo America, which lost minus 53.01%. The MTN Group that lost 34.06%. There is Sasol, which lost 33 minus 30%. So there is Cooper Iron Ore, it also lost minus 34.65%. So Anglo America was the heaviest loser on that day. So we have to know these top 40 big companies. So in South Africa, they also grouped, and they came with the top 40 index, where all the big 40 companies of South Africa, they are located there. So it's the same concept with America. America, they have the S&P 500, where the 50 big companies, 500 big companies of America are located. And then there is the Dow Jones, then there is the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, it is 100 technology companies of America. The Dow Jones, it is the 30 big companies. All the 30 big companies in America, they are found in Dow Jones. So that's what makes it more volatile, because of the things that happen with the 30 big companies and the 100. So even the South African top 40 index, it's also one of the big in Africa. So the biggest gainers on that day was Naspers. Naspers, it gained 91.31%, and it was the biggest gainer on that day. And Richmond, it gained 51.73%. Then there was Anglo Gold Ashanti, it gained 23 0.25%. Then there's the Tiger Brands, it gained 27.90%. So what made the index to lose? Because there are a lot of companies that lost. So I just selected the companies that gained and the companies that lost on that day. So it's one of the big index that people like to invest. So, but the only way of investing is when you understand the drop down of the company, so that you can know when is the time to invest. For you to know when is the time to invest is to understand when the market, it goes down and touch a certain resistance. You always buy these companies, these indices, whenever they are cheap. So when they are cheap, right now when it's around 70,490, it's expensive. So you have to let it go down and give you a certain level where you can easily buy and invest on these companies. So we'll be talking more on the top 40 index of South Africa and introducing other African indexes, so that when you want to invest, you will know that is it the time to buy or is it the time to sell, or which time are we in at the present moment. So I'll continue with the news and talk about the news that was circulating, that has been the talk of the in the markets at the moment, is that the president of Kenya, William Ruto, spoke about the removal of the US dollar from their currency. So as I talked about in the economic news, I'm also talking about this president right now, because these news are the ones that affects the markets, that makes the market to be volatile, or to gain, or to even lose. So it's like he is bringing change to the country, and one of the things that he is bringing is that you want the country to use their own currency, which is the shilling, and which is a very good thing for any country in Africa, to use their own currency and not rely on other people's currencies. It will make them to create more jobs and to have stability in their country. So what is actually happening at the present moment is that a lot of countries want to remove themselves from the US dollar, because the US dollar is the currency that people use to trade with other countries. So as the president came with this news, there is also news that it came also that big BRICS countries. There are BRICS countries where there is China, there is Russia, there is India, there is South Africa, and there is Brazil. These are the countries that have developing economies. So these countries, they decided and say, we will no longer also use the US dollar, want to now change and use the Chinese yen. So it's like there is this cycle that actually happens in the economy, and I will talk about it. I will try to explain the cycles that have been happening, where countries were giving each other time frame. So it's like it's a 100-year period cycle, where even the Spain currency once ruled the world, and people were trading all over the world using the Spain currency. So right now, for almost 100 years, people have been using the US dollar to trade, to buy oil, to buy everything in the world market. But it's like the time for the US dollars is up, and it's now time for the Chinese yen to rule. So mark my words, by the end of the year and up until 2024, we might be seeing the yen ruling, the Chinese ruling the world, and being the part of the powerhouse of the economies. So that's the news that actually happened, and it's going to take the Russians on a right direction. As I move on, is that Amazon to lay off 9,000 workers, which bring the total to 27,000 people who have been laid off in Amazon. So you know, these American companies, they will be having more than 200,000 employees. Just Amazon will be having more than 150,000 employees. So as you can see, the numbers are becoming too much they are laying off. The problems are happening even in those countries. So the reason that has made them is what this is saying about the economy and the tech industry. What is this saying about the economy and the tech industry? Is that these are the effects of the pandemic. So the pandemic, as it is happening now, we're now actually seeing the effects of the pandemic now. The pandemic that happened in 2020, the effects, we're actually seeing them now. So it's change that happened in the business. So in the business side, there's a certain change that is actually happening now. So the idea is to get more money with less people. That's what these companies, they're actually seeing, because they are seeing that the stock price is going down a lot. So it's better they retrench and lose a client for them to make the stock price to not to fall. So they're trying to balance things, especially the stock, because that's how you attract a lot of investors into the market. So the idea is to get more money with less people, and the stock will go up after cutting off jobs. So it is expected for Amazon to go up in the next coming weeks because of the laying off of workers. So as I move on to another slide, okay, this one is very important. It's one of the important news. So what you have to know about the news is that the South African government has hiked the interest rates by another 50 basis points, which will move the interest rate to 7.75%. The interest rate have gone up on a serious note at the moment. So the inflation at the moment is at 7% after it came at 6.9 in the previous month. So the CPI, when it was reading, the inflation had to increase by 1%. But these guys, they were supposed at least move the interest rate by at least 25 basis points, and now it was moved by 50 basis points, and it's one of those things that are actually happening. So it is projected that the economy will grow by 1% in 2024 in South Africa and 1.1% in 2025, but at the moment it remains at a serious, it's in an edge. So that's why they are trying by all means to reduce the inflation that is happening, so that there will be growth in the economy. So the other thing that we have to know is that the load shedding remains a risk, strengthening threatening to lift costs across the board for South Africa. And it has been seen that a lot of things are going up. A lot of things in the country, they are going up, from the eggs to the milk, the basic things to meal to rice. Those simple things, they are going up. So I'll come up next time with the report of so that we can see like how things have grown up. We have gone up from last year until now. So the number of days that is expected, because the other thing that is actually happening in South Africa is the load shedding, and is affecting a lot of business. So it is projected that the number of days expected for load shedding in 2023 is at 250 days, and 150 days in 2024, and 100 days in 2025. So the load shedding is here, and it's still here until the next coming 3 years. So the company had 250 billion in assets, which means they had so this is what is actually happening with this thing of load shedding. So on the other news is that retailer hanging with a 1 billion bill. So The Franchise Association of South Africa says the government recent move to give food manufacturing a refund on the diesel spent doesn't go far enough, leaving businesses big and small in a large and steady contending with multi-million rand fuel bills. So what we have to know is that there are companies like in 2023, the financial minister around the manufacturing of food stuff, including beverage and ingredients used to produce beverages and certain other food stuff, may claim back the prescribed position of a road accidental fund for the pricing paid for the diesel. So there are companies that wants to claim their monies because of the things that is actually being caused by the load shedding. So imagine load shedding is happening. Last year it happened for more than 250 days. So this year it's even going to happen for 250 days out of 365 days, which means if it happens for 250 days, there is another 170 days that is expected for people to only have load shedding in the whole country. So which is a big problem to these businesses. So if the diesel is used for a generator that powers any portion of whole food production process, then the products can claim the relevant part of road accident levy paid. So there are companies that are complaining about this thing that is happening. So the companies like ShopRite and Pick and Pay have spent 906 million in diesel, and if you include Woolworths, it gets to R1 billion. So these companies are crying because they are providing food to the country in a big scale. So these three companies, only these companies, they say in a year's time they will spend 1 billion rands in terms of the fuel that they use. So you know, a lot of companies, they use fuel like generators. They use generators for them to bring light to their companies. As you know, these companies, they provide food. They provide food, and they have the food ingredients and beverages that they have even companies that use, they create for themselves these beverages and fruit ingredients. So one way or the other, they need electricity so that these things do not go bad. For they supply food to the country at large. So because of the thing that is actually happening in this country, so I was talking with my other friend, and he was telling me that these companies, they need to be compensated for these things, because in other ways, you have to know that different companies, these countries are the same companies that give the government bonds. So they give the government bonds so that the government may be able to provide tenders for certain things. If the government doesn't have money, it works with these companies so that they offer them money. So that's why when they are in need, also the government has to come back again and give them money so that the business continues. And whenever there is a need and the government can meet up those needs, those companies are the ones also that give the government the money in terms of bonds. So we'll talk more about bonds, because that's where tenders come in a country. So these are very important things that are happening in a country, and a lot of people will not be knowing why. Will be saying, why are these companies are the only ones who are benefiting from this as a road accident fund? No, it's because of the relationship that the government keeps with these companies, because these are the big companies that bring a lot of tax to the company, to the country, and it's this tax we need it for the construction of roads and other things. So because of this, that's why we need to also invest in such companies like ShopRite, like Woolworths, and like Pick n Pay, because they are sustainable. We can sustain and have them for a longer time. So let's continue on the next slide. On the other news that was important, that has been the important news that has caused a lot of traffic in America, was the SVB going down. So what do I mean with the SVB going down? It's the bank. It's a bank in America. There's a bank in America called the Silicon Valley Bank. So I just want to break it down for you so that you may understand why it caused a lot of traffic in America. This news was one of the big news in the past weeks that has been causing a lot of noise. So the SPV, it's a bank that is located in California. So it's called the Silicon Valley Bank. It's a bank that is in California, in Silicon. So they called it the Silicon Valley Bank. And remember, the Silicon Valley is one of the startup places. It's one of the. It's a city that is well known for its startup. So it is a very huge company. It's a very huge bank, because a lot of startup companies are located in that city. So it's one of those banks that was helping a lot of these startup companies to, when they want money. So it was giving out loans to more than 80%. So it's like 80% of the startup companies were taking loans from that bank. So what you have to know about this bank or this Silicon Valley Bank is that the banks, there are big banks that are going to benefit, because after this thing has happened, there are so many big banks that are going to benefit from this problem that arise to the Silicon Bank. So the Silicon Bank was giving out loans to companies, as 80% of their clients were startup companies. From 2009 to 2022, US was having almost near 0% of interest rate. So the most important thing that we have to understand that caused the business to shut down of Silicon Valley Bank is that from 2009 to 2022, America was like working under 0% of interest rate. It was around between 1 and 2%. So it wasn't a big interest rate for a very long time. So from 2022 to 2023, the interest rate moved from that position of 0% to 5%. So it was one of a problem to the banks, because remember, 80% of the market are startup and are not making money every day. So Silicon Valley was giving out a lot of loans to these startups, and startups is not that they will be making money at that time. So they won't be making money every day, but they will be having ideas, and the banks will be believing in those ideas. And those startups, they won't be paying money at a higher interest rate. They'll be paying at a lower interest rate, and it won't be too much for them to give away those monies. So what actually happened? So the thing that caused a lot of commotion, that made the bank to lose money in less than 3 days, 4 days, is that there is something that happened. There are people who are called vintage capitals. They discovered an error because of the interest rate. So their job is to make money and just, so the vintage capital's job is to make money, and they deal with these people, these startups. So what happened is that there is a guy who just told one person, and was like, listen, go and take out your money from that bank, because they saw loopholes. But it's not that the bank was not having money. The bank was actually having money, was having around 209 billion. The SPV, the Silicon Valley Bank, it was having money. But there's someone who just said, because of the interest rate and the increase that is the interest rate that are happening, I'm seeing certain loopholes in terms of the bonds that are being carried by the banks, and in terms of the what, or because of these interest rate. So this guy saw and is told one person, he was like, go and take out your money. But it's not that the bank was not having money. So you know, when you spread when you tell one person that there is a problem, that person can pass the same message to another person that there is another problem. So the bank, they discovered in one day that there is someone who was removing money. So when people are removing money, they go and remove millions. Someone went and removed money, and they saw another person coming and say, I want to remove my money. And remember that we're in the under this technological era, people can move money simple by using the technology, using the bank app. So they saw that there were a lot of people who were starting to remove money. People were starting to remove money, and in just one day. And the other thing that brought a lot of chaos was the removal of money by the CEO. The CEO also had to sell his 3.2 million of stock, and the other CEO had to sell another 800,000 stock. So, and a lot of people, the news went out in less than a day, around 32 billion was taken out of the bank. So the problem was not that the bank wasn't having money, but it's the speed that was happening on those 2 days in the removal of money. And in no time, in less than 48 hours, the bank is now pronounced to be bankrupt, because a lot of people are moving money from their money to the other banks, because they are now afraid, until the bank was now put in a place where they said it's now bankrupt. We are now shutting down the bank, and that's how the bank was closed. But because of this problem that arose in America, so the banks, they went and said they will give back the money to those who didn't receive their monies. They will give them back their monies. There is no problem with that. But anything that you have to do with investments, they will not give you any of your monies back. So this is the news that actually happened, and that shocked the world when the SVB bank was closed, and the UBS bank also, it happened. So as we continue with the same problem, there is another bank that also was having another problem and was about to be shut down, is the Credit Suisse bank. It was acquired, and the UBS bank acquired Credit Suisse for 32 billion. So what I'm actually saying is that the Credit Suisse was also in another problem of being closed. So the government had to come up with a solution, and they said no, because of what we saw with the thing of the Silicon Valley Bank, the Credit Suisse, because the stock was going down for a long time. So they had to say, we're not giving you any option. Now what we're telling you is that you should sell this bank to other people who are having money. So the UBS bank had to buy the Credit Suisse for 3.2 billion. So it was projected, firstly, they'd put in they'd bidded it for 1 billion, but they say no, we should take up your price, until it was agreed that they should sell it for 3.2 billion. So because of these things that were happening, this is what made the gold to even rise in terms of the price, because the gold had to rise by more than 4,000 points in that week of the problem. So the gold had to move from 18,000 to now it's more than 19,000. It is going to from 1,800. and it's now at 1,900 and it is projected to go to more than 2,000 because of these problems that happen. So these are the news that shocked the world and the news that made the market to even go up, and there was volatility, and it caused even the dollar to go down. So these are the news. These are the news, and there are other news that happened, and this was the news of the day of what happened. So we're going to go to the next segment, which is called the word learn the dialect. So learning the dialect or learning the lingo is one of those important topics that we have put in here, because so as a giant person you have to know the language of the business, because whenever the language business is being spoken, you will think it's another different language that you have never heard. So the reason why we came up with learning the dialect is so that you may understand the simple terms of the market. So today we're going to talk about earnings. So earnings is money obtained in the return of labor or services. So what I'm actually saying with the earnings, so companies, they come to the point where they tell us about the earnings of the money that came. So when I'm talking about the earnings, I'm talking about I'll give you a simple idea whereby, let's say you are a worker, you work in a bank. Then on weekends when you are not working, you go and do Uber, which means it's another income that comes in. Then you have your own side hustle also. Maybe you are selling phones. It's another income that comes in. Then you have another side hustle. Maybe you are pushing a podcast. Then it's another side hustle. So when you take all the monies and you put it in one basket, that's what we call earnings. So those are the earnings, but you need to differentiate. There is a difference between the cash flow and the earnings. So earnings is money that comes in different activities. Then you take and put it in one place. So when companies are talking about maybe let's say a company like Apple is doing its earnings, it will be taking money from different places and putting it in one basket. Then it gives us and say this is the amount that we made in the earnings, and it comes in quarterly forms. So that's what we call the earnings. Then we go to another to our last slide, which is the word of the day. So as the word of the day, I want to motivate you. You need to be motivated so that you see the need of making sure that, okay, I want to do this thing and at this way, but I need a bit of motivation for me to reach at a certain level. So the word of the day today, we're going to take it from the Bible. So a Bible is one of those books that has stand the test of time and is very important, and it has the words that can encourage you and lift your spirit up. So today we are going to talk from the word which is Proverbs 4 verse 17. The Proverbs 4 verse 17 says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and in all your getting, get understanding. This is one of the most important words that you can get from the Bible, because it encourages us to get wisdom. But with all the money that we have to gain understanding. We have to understand. So that's why I created this podcast, so that people can get to the point of understanding of what they are doing, to break it down for you, so that you may understand how the market works, why the business news are important, and why things are happening in this form. So the prophet there was Solomon. Solomon was telling us, no, in all your getting, get understanding. You need to understand what you are doing. You should not run away from anything, but understand of what you are doing. So the point here is to make you to understand, and so that you may have wisdom to apply it in the market. So that's it for the Giants market for today. I thank you all for coming in I thank you all for tuning in. Please subscribe and tell a friend about, and tell a friend that you may tell a friend, and comment, so that we may teach each other about this financial thing that we've missed as Africans for a long time. It's the giant markets. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace.